Welcome, Danksters, to this week's episode of Intoxicating Justice, Drug True Crime Stories from the dailydank.com. I'm your host, Brian Brown, bringing you a special Thanksgiving edition. I just want to say how incredibly thankful I am for all of you tuning in. Whether you're preparing your holiday meal or nursing a food coma, truly grateful to be part of this awesome family we're building together. Today, we've got a real powerhouse of a story lined up for you. We're taking a deep dive into the rise and fall of Pablo Escobar, the man they called the King of Cocaine. This guy's story is one for the ages, filled with staggering highs and devastating lows. Before we get into it, I want to take a moment to share something personal. Many of you know that I was addicted to meth for 5 long years. A period that nearly destroyed my life. But here I am, almost 30 years clean, bringing these true crime stories to you because I've lived through the devastation drugs can bring. Second chances are something I am deeply thankful for, especially during the season of gratitude. If you're craving more dank content, true crime tales, and everything cannabis, make sure to check out thedailydank.com. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's there. So are you ready? Let's get into it. All right, let's start at the very beginning with Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria. Born on December 1st, 1949, he came from a humble farming family in Rio Negro, Colombia. He was the third of 7 children, and life wasn't exactly served to him on a silver platter. Growing up in the city of Medellín, young Pablo showed early signs of what some might call entrepreneurial skills, though they were far from legal. As just a kid, he was already running small hustles like selling fake diplomas and even stolen tombstones. Imagine being resourceful enough to make money off tombstones. If nothing else, the guy had a knack for seeing opportunities where others saw problems. By the time he hit his teenage years, Escobar's ventures had taken a darker turn. He moved from petty hustles to stealing cars and dabbling in smuggling. This wasn't a kid running lemonade stands. He was setting the stage for a future empire, one small crime at a time. For a brief moment, he had aspirations that weren't wholly criminal. He dreamt of becoming a criminal lawyer or maybe even the president of Colombia. But those dreams were snuffed out by the harsh realities of poverty and street life. With no money for education and a growing knack for crime, his path veered sharply away from the law and plunged entirely into defying it. His first major arrest came in 1974 for stealing cars, but that was hardly a deterrent. By the mid-70s, Colombia's marijuana smuggling scene was booming, and Pablo saw an even greater opportunity on the horizon: cocaine. It was then that he began laying the groundwork for what would become the largest cocaine empire the world has ever seen. Let's move on to part 2, the rise of the Medellín Cartel. In 1976, Pablo Escobar took a monumental step by founding the Medellín Cartel. What started as a small operation quickly grew into a cocaine empire unmatched by any other in the world. Escobar had a genius for logistics and, more importantly, for pushing the limits of what was technologically possible at the time. His cartel used submarines to ship massive amounts of cocaine alongside small aircraft that could evade radar detection. There were even instances of people smuggling suitcases filled with cocaine on commercial flights. The guy was innovative, if nothing else. By the 1980s, the Medellín Cartel had an iron grip on the cocaine market. Over 80% of the cocaine flowing into the United States was controlled by Escobar and his network. Let that sink in for a moment. 80%. And we're not talking pocket change here. They were raking in about $420 million every week. Yes, you heard that right. Every single week. With that kind of cash, Escobar's lifestyle reached levels of luxury that most of us can't even begin to imagine. His famed estate, Hacienda Nápoles, was nothing short of a private paradise. The place had its own zoo, complete with exotic animals like hippos and elephants. There was a bull ring and even an airstrip. It's as if he merged a billionaire's playground with a zoo and tossed in an airport for good measure. This lavish spending wasn't just for show, though. Escobar crafted an image of himself as a modern day Robin Hood, especially among the poor communities in Medellin. He poured money into building housing parks and schools. For many people, he was a hero, someone who lifted them out of poverty. They called him Robin Hood Paisa, but don't be fooled by the philanthropy. Such generosity came at a staggering cost. Thousands of lives were lost as Escobar tightened his grip on power. His quest for dominance in the drug trade left a trail of violence and misery that reverberated far beyond Colombia's borders. For more jaw-dropping stories like this one, head over to thedailydank.com. Trust me, you don't want to miss what we're covering next. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the chaotic world of Pablo Escobar in the next segment. Are you ready to elevate your cannabis experience? Welcome to thedailydank.com, your ultimate destination for everything weed, laughs, and good vibes. We're more than just a website. We're a community, a place where cannabis lovers come together to share, learn, and have a blast. Whether you're tuning in for the wild and hilarious 420 Somewhere podcast, getting your game face on during one of our epic game night live sessions, or waking up to the wakey bakey morning show for your daily dose of fun, we've got something for everyone. Dive into our exclusive podcasts, from the spooky to the weird to the downright hilarious. We've got a show for every kind of stoner. We're not just about listening. We want you to join in. Our online meetups and community events give you a chance to connect with fellow dank heads and dive deep into everything cannabis culture. And hey, if you're looking for your people, you finally found them. The Daily Dank is your home for all things stoner culture, crazy theories, and a whole lot of fun. Join the family today at thedailydank.com. This is more than just a website, it's a lifestyle. That's thedailydank.com. And now let's turn our focus to one of the most chilling aspects of Pablo Escobar's reign, his infamous philosophy of plata o plomo, literally translating to silver or lead. In other words, you either take the bribe or you take a bullet. There was no middle ground with Escobar. You were either with him or against him, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Escobar's approach was a masterclass in narco-terrorism. He had no qualms about using political bribes to bend the system to his will. Politicians, policemen, judges, you name it, were often on his payroll, ensuring they turned a blind eye to his illicit activities. But the flip side of the coin was brutal. If bribery didn't work, Escobar had no hesitation in resorting to violence. Take, for instance, his orchestration of targeted assassinations. Anyone who opposed him or dared to stand in his way often met a gruesome end. Judges who refused his bribes, journalists who wrote damning articles, and political figures who spoke out against him were all targets. The Medellín Cartel was relentless, eliminating threats with lethal efficiency. One of the most horrific examples of Escobar's ruthlessness was the bombing of Avianca Flight 203 in 1989. The target was a presidential candidate, but in a tragic twist, the candidate wasn't even on the flight. Nonetheless, all 107 passengers perished, making it one of the deadliest acts of terrorism in Colombia's history. This showed just how far Escobar was willing to go to instill fear and control. The sheer scale of the Medellín cartel's violence was staggering. The cartel was responsible for over 4,000 deaths, a figure that included police officers, journalists, government officials, and countless innocent civilians. Under Escobar's rule, Colombia became the murder capital of the world, synonymous with violence and chaos. For Escobar, crime wasn't just a means to an end, it was a war waged on anyone who stood in his way. It's incredible to think about the level of terror that gripped Colombia during this time. The streets were essentially battlegrounds, with Escobar's reign leading to unprecedented levels of fear and violence. There was no safe harbor, no escape from the brutality that characterized this dark period in Colombia's history. All right, stick around, as up next, we'll be discussing the dramatic fall of Pablo Escobar and how his reign of terror finally came to an end. You won't want to miss it. Now, let's dive into the final chapter of this incredible story, the fall of the King of Cocaine. By the late 1980s, Pablo Escobar's once invincible empire started to show cracks. The U.S. and Colombian governments had grown increasingly determined to bring him down. Escobar's reign of narco terrorism had become too big to ignore, and the powers that be were coming for him full force. The Drug Enforcement Administration, or DEA, played a huge role in the effort to corner Escobar. They teamed up with Colombian Special Forces, creating an alliance that struck fear into the heart of Escobar's operations. It became clear that the man who seemed untouchable just years earlier was now facing a formidable opposition. Escobar, ever the egotist, thought he could outsmart everyone. He struck a deal with the Colombian government to serve time in his self built luxury prison, a swanky facility he called La Catedral. This prison was more like a five-star resort complete with a nightclub, jacuzzi, and waterfall. The brazen audacity of the man. He truly believed he could serve time in luxury while continuing to pull the strings of his empire. But reality came crashing down in 1992 when authorities decided it was time to move him to a real prison. Realizing the jig was up, Escobar orchestrated an escape that only added to his mythos, but also put him on a collision course with destiny. It marked the beginning of the end for Pablo Escobar. The subsequent manhunt was relentless and intense, involving military raids and countless near misses. For over a year, Escobar played a high stakes game of cat and mouse with the authorities who were dead set on capturing him. And capture him they finally did. On December 2nd, 1993, just one day after his 44th birthday, the chase ended. Trapped in a hideout in Medellin, Colombian forces closed in on Escobar. It all culminated in a dramatic shootout that spilled onto the rooftops. Trying to flee, Escobar met his end in a hail of bullets, killed by Colombian forces. His death signaled more than just the fall of a criminal kingpin. It marked the end of a bloody era in Colombia's history. With Escobar's death, the Medellín Cartel began to disintegrate. The once dominant cocaine empire crumbled, bringing a tenuous sense of relief to a country that had lived under the shadow of narco terrorism for far too long. But Escobar's legacy is a complicated one. The wealth, violence, and rampant corruption he left in his wake continue to reverberate in Colombia and beyond. His story serves as a grim reminder of what happens when unchecked power and greed are allowed to fester. Thanks for tuning in to this gripping segment. Stay with us as we move into our final section where we'll break down the key lessons we can learn from the life and reign of Pablo Escobar. Welcome to the Healing Center, located at 1400 Needles Highway in the heart of Needles, California, right off the iconic Route 66 and just a stone's throw from the breathtaking Colorado River. But that's not all. Prepare yourself for the ninth wonder of the world, the legendary Wall of Flower. With over 60 brands and strains of top-tier cannabis, you'll be in flower paradise. At the Healing Center, we don't just have the best selection. We offer the lowest prices around. We're proud to be known as the #1 cannabis superstore in all the land, offering the best service, the best deals, and a shopping experience like no other. So why wait? Come check out the world-famous Healing Center for yourself and see what all the buzz is about. For the latest scoop and hottest deals, head over to thedailydank.com and stay in the know. The Healing Center, where quality meets affordability. Your cannabis journey starts here. All right, Danksters, we've covered a lot today, but let's wrap up Pablo Escobar's saga with some big takeaways, because his story is more than just another true crime epic. It's a treasure trove of life lessons, albeit learned the hard way. So, what can Escobar's life teach us? Here are 3 big lessons. First up, power corrupts. Absolutely. Escobar's journey from small-time hustles to becoming the king of cocaine is a textbook example. The more power he amassed, the more corrupt he became. His immense wealth and influence didn't protect him from downfall. If anything, they expedited it. Remember, the higher you climb up the ladder of crime, the further you have to fall. Second, the cost of crime. Escobar's empire was built on the blood and suffering of thousands. For every dollar he made, countless lives were destroyed. From hired assassins to innocent civilians caught in the crossfire, the human toll of his drug empire is staggering. His story is a grim reminder that the consequences of crime extend far beyond the perpetrator. They ripple out, affecting entire communities and even crossing national borders. And finally, the complexity of legacy. Even now, Escobar's memory is a divisive issue. To some, he remains a Robin Hood figure, someone who provided for the poor and stood against the establishment. To others, he's a monster who unleashed chaos and violence on a massive scale. It's a stark reminder that crime doesn't just impact the guilty, it leaves an indelible mark on history, for better or worse. The tale of Pablo Escobar warns us that actions, whether hailed or vilified, cast long shadows. So there you have it, 3 enduring lessons from the life of Pablo Escobar: the corrupting allure of power, the devastating cost of crime, and the complicated legacy we all leave behind. If you're itching for more fascinating deep dives into true crime stories like this one, head over to thedailydank.com. The danker, the better, right? All right, folks, that's a wrap for this segment, but don't go anywhere. We've got more to discuss in today's episode. Stay tuned as we recap everything we've learned and close out this Thanksgiving edition of Intoxicating Justice. And for more dank content, go to thedailydank.com. All right, Danksters, that wraps up episode 3 of Intoxicating Justice Drug True Crime Stories. We took a deep dive into the life of Pablo Escobar, touching upon his vast power, immense wealth, the widespread violence, and the myth of his untouchability. Escobar's story is one of towering highs and catastrophic lows, wrapped in a legacy that continues to haunt us today. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to all our listeners. Your support means the world to me, especially as we move through this season of gratitude. Thank you for tuning in, sharing your thoughts, and being part of this growing community. Don't forget to check out thedailydank.com for more true crime stories, cannabis culture, and everything in between. Trust me, you don't want to miss the content we have lined up for you there. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe. Happy Thanksgiving, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Intoxicating Justice. This is Brian Brown signing off.